Welcome back to part 2 of the video series of my Grizzly table saw. Today we'll talk a little bit about why I chose this saw and some of the issues with the fence, some of the additions with the router table and the Craig router table fence. Talked about the mitering, a little bit of the changes in the wiring that I did to this, and yeah. So one of the things I looked at when I was ordering out this saw is that how big of a saw do I need? And when I looked at this one, this is probably the smallest 3-horse saw that they have. And I looked at, do I need that extra width on it? And I know I've seen a lot of other people said they didn't. I've got a festival track saw and a Polk workbench that I can set up if I'm knocking down sheet goods. I'm not real comfortable doing full sheets off the table saw unless I had a big, sliding table saw. And so I decided to go with the smaller one. That helps out because I've only got so much square footage. I've only got 560 square feet in this shop, and I need to move everything off to the side, be able to get the truck in here with the snow plow on it, be able to work on things. So I needed to be able to be out of the way farther enough and not take up, every square foot makes a big difference in this shop. So the saw itself I'm pretty happy with the exception of those two things that we talked about earlier. It comes with the this Shop Fox fence. So the fence that comes with it is actually not I wouldn't say it's a bad fence. It's better than a lot of fences. But one of the things that I find when I go ahead and tighten this, I don't know if you're going to see that on camera or not, if you can see that. But you line it up where you think you want it. You throw it down, and it shifts over a little bit. Let's see if we can get an idea how much that's shifting over. It's not a lot, but it's probably a 64th of an inch. I'd rather that just draw up straight up. So sometimes if originally when I was measuring, I'd measure off the blade tips to the fence, tighten it up, and then it would shift over. And that's a little frustrating. Not exactly sure why it wants to do that, and why it wants to pull off to that side. So the couple of upgrades that I've done to the saw that we're going to go through today. One of them is, this was the miter gauge that came with it, adequate enough for the job, but I added the Incra 1000 SE. That has been a great addition, especially for short repeatable cuts. Haven't done a lot of angle cutting on it. But that's worked out really nice. The other thing is when I ordered out this saw shortly thereafterwards, I ordered this cast iron router table extension and had that put that on. Went on really relatively easily. I already had the Rockler's lift already, and originally I was going to use the fence that came with I already had the fence from a different table, and that would have worked out fairly well. but I was working on some projects here recently where I wanted to doing some sliding dovetails where the increment in here needed to be, when you're doing the sliding dovetails, you're adjusting to get those to fit. Your tolerances are pretty tight. So I was able to find, this is a Craig, it's actually a router table fence that's got some cool features into it. It's got the dust collection like many do. It's got a lockdown on this side. I'm going to bring you over off to this side here. So one of the things I really liked about this Craig router fence, it was meant to originally mount up underneath. So in here, so originally these holes in here would mount up underside the table. So if you had a 1-inch thick table, stuff like that. But that wasn't going to work for my application, so I just took a piece of ash that I had left over from a project and milled that out really well. It's stable, it doesn't stick out in the way. But one of the features I really liked about it is it's got a little locking dial here. So when I was working on the dovetail, I can slide this from 0 plus or minus 25 thousandths of an inch. And when doing the dovetails, you can set that in. It's like, okay, I want to go 10 thousandths, you go there, loosen up the other side, and that's knocked in there. And there is 10 thousandths of an inch, which when you're doing that kind of stuff, you need that. It's got a couple other features where you can actually do jointing with this, and it's got some rods that store within here that you can actually do some joining. But I wouldn't, probably for me with joiner and the planer and everything, there's no reason for me ever to do that. So one of the things I did modify this, and I'm sure I'll get told that you can't do this. Originally this was a 3-wire 220, and I brought in a 4th wire, so I have two hots, neutral, and a ground. And for normal 220, you only need 2 hots and a ground. But anyway, not an electrician, and if you're going to do anything to your site, you're on your own there. So, what I was able to do, and it's worked out, I haven't had any issues with it, is I added a longer cord with the 4-prong. This is a 20 amp 220 service or a breaker, and I pigtailed off of that within the saw so that I could bring in 110 to the router table. And then I also have a second plug. There's 2 plugs down here. One of them has switched and one is unswitched, so if I bring in a power feeder or something like that, I can mount on here. That gets me 1 cord hooked up to the saw, and when I'm dragging it around in the here, it's nice to have, rather than having multiple cords and tripping over stuff. There's just, less cords the better. So that has worked out. I know that doesn't meet code, but there's that.